Beyond Our Borders is brought to you by KFC and the Medical City, where patients are partners.
Good day, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Beyond Our Borders. I'm Nestor Licanto, and many of you may know that the Philippines is one of the fastest growing mobile phone markets in the world, with more than 84 million users. And Filipinos, of course, are very, very adept at social media like Facebook and Instagram, and especially TikTok. And we're very excited to welcome as our guest this month, Mr. Mark Roden. He is the CEO and the founder of the world's leading mobile top-up service, Ding. And we also have Ms. Paola de Mesa. She is an account executive based in the UK for Philippine media, one of the top media companies in the Philippines, ABS-CBN. And she's also a avid, loyal Ding user. So she's going to give us some insight into how Filipinos' mindset about prepaid mobile service. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Nestor.
My pleasure.
Let me start with you, Mark, and let me quote this. I read that you started the company with the belief that mobile phones can change people's lives, particularly those from emerging markets. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, sure. And I think, like any startup, it very often doesn't, begin with a goal of I'm going to start a business. So I was in Dubai with my wife and 3 young daughters in 2005, and we were staying in a hotel. But I got into conversation with a waiter who described to me how difficult it was for him to top up his wife's mobile phone back in Bangalore. He was from India and working in Dubai. And he told me what he would do is he would get a PIN locally from one of the Indian mobile operators, BSNL in this case, and he would text the PIN to his wife. And he showed it to me on his cell phone. And when I asked him why he did this and why he didn't just send the money back with Western Union or whatever to his wife, he said, it's so complex sometimes to do that. And also it takes a few days, often even, you have to go through lots of KYC, et cetera, et cetera. And I then said, what if all of the workers abroad who have family back home wanted just to share a little bit of value just at that instant and be really relevant in their families' lives at that point in time? Because let's face it, all of the workers in the Gulf, all of the workers in Hong Kong, the Philippines, who are often from the Philippines as well, they are separated from loved ones. And remittances are great, but isn't it just super to be able to send something that gets there in 3 seconds?
Yeah, and that's, I think, one of the keys to the Ding service is because if you don't want to necessarily send a whole, your monthly allowance is what we usually call it here.
Right.
You might, your wife or daughter or son might need, 1,000, 2,000 pesos, and they might need it right away. And this is an ideal way for them to be able to do this. For those who are not familiar with Ding, tell us more about the company, how big you are.
So established in 2006, not long after that encounter with the waiter. And then I set about building relationships with all the cell phone operators around the world, including Smart, Globe. I've been out to Manila a number of times, had great meetings with the cell phone operators and Sun as well. And, we built the relationships on the basis that, almost like Amazon, anybody who comes to Ding must be able to find the cell phone operator that they and their families use back home. And so we're now at the point where we've 500 cell phone operators around the world. We've added a load to 500 million mobile phones, and we've got 250 people working all around the world for Ding every day, sending load all around the world to friends and family. Like in the screen behind me that you can see, that's just a little snapshot of what we have here in our network.
Beyond Our Borders is brought to you by KFC and the Medical City, where patients are partners.
When making the new Kentucky Fried Chicken sandwich, people asked how I felt about burger places selling fried chicken. I'd say that's none of my business. Just like making fried chicken is none of theirs. Get the new Kentucky Fried Chicken sandwich. It's finger-licking good.
Beyond Our Borders is brought to you by KFC and the Medical City, where patients are partners.
Yeah, let me bring Paula into the conversation. Paula, as I mentioned, you're based in the UK, media account executive for ABS-CBN. Tell us how you learned about Ding and how you use it.
Oh, yes. Actually, I found out about Ding from a friend here in the UK. So it was during the height of the pandemic. It was in our group chat, actually, where she mentioned that she sent a load to her mom. And then I got interested because I want to do that. I want to do that for my parents as well, and for my grandmom, especially, when the pandemic, senior citizens are not allowed to go out. And so I thought that was really helpful for them, and so that they don't have to go out of the house to get a load.
Yeah, and that was a very common problem during the pandemic in Manila in particular, because there was a lot of fear that, especially older people who are more vulnerable to be able to, they kind of locked themselves into their homes because they didn't want to get, they were fearful of being, catching the virus. Mark, so what attracted you to the Philippine market in the first place? And how would you describe what appears to be a very predominant use of prepaid here in the Philippines?
Well, the Philippines is the leader, one of the leading countries in the world in terms of prepaid. 90% of all cell phones are prepaid. It's also the text capital of the world. And, Filipinos and Filipinas all around the world, I mean, anytime you see them, you guys are constantly on your phones. And I don't say this in a bad way. I think this is great. But, you're the text champions of the world. You're the TikTok champions of the world. So cell phones are such an integral part of how most of us work, but this is especially true in the Philippines. We think that, because of that, because of how close you are to your cell phone operators like Globe and like Smart, who do a great job of really looking at Filipinos, not just in the Philippines, but also the wider community around the world, and making sure that those connections are maintained. So for us, it was a no-brainer. If we're going to be relevant, we have to be relevant in the Philippines and to Filipino customers.
Yeah, talk a little bit more about your products and services in the Philippines. You also do cash remittance?
No, we don't do cash remittance. We just do load. And, again, that comes back to there's lots of great remittance companies who can, get value home, as Paola was saying, every few weeks or every month or whenever is relevant. But, one of the things about the Philippines as well is this is where the micro economy grew, which is, we don't necessarily need 20 cigarettes at a time. We don't necessarily need, 4 bottles of beer or groceries for a week. We need something for today, just for this moment. And that's where Ding comes in. We transfer load in 3 seconds for the use for that day or for a few days.
Yeah. And Paula, I know you gave us some examples earlier, but what can you tell us about the Filipino mindset in terms of, that what we were talking before we started taping about the bengi load kind of mentality, how important is load, given the fact, as Mark mentioned, that, the Philippines is predominantly prepaid when it comes to mobile service?
Yeah, it's still prevalent in the Philippines. It's still widespread in the Philippines because of practicality. Yeah. They're really not forced to get postpaid plan because most household and offices does have Wi-Fi connection. And but when people get out of their houses or their offices, they still need to be connected online. There's a need for us to be connected online. I'm talking for Filipinos, right? And I believe that's when the prepaid data comes in. So I believe they get a very good deal from network providers for a very reasonable price. So it's like $1 or 50 Philippine peso can go a long way, rather than paying a fixed monthly price for a postpaid plan.
Beyond Our Borders is brought to you by KFC and the Medical City, where patients are partners.
When making the new Kentucky Fried Chicken sandwich, people asked how I felt about burger places selling fried chicken. I'd say that's none of my business, just like making fried chicken is none of theirs. Get the new Kentucky Fried Chicken sandwich. It's finger-licking good.
Beyond Our Borders is brought to you by KFC and the Medical City, where patients are partners.
Yeah. And Mark, data is king. Yeah. I mean, most people have a phone, but don't really talk on it anymore. I mean, they'll, as you mentioned, and I see it, not just here in Manila, but, back in Guam or even in the US, where people may be sitting at a restaurant table and they're on their phone or they're lined up at the bank, they're on their phone. They're in the grocery store line, they're on their phone. But mostly it's used like a mini computer, internet surfing, and talk a little bit more about that.
Well, I think it's a really good point, and if we look at our own ways that our usage of mobile phones has evolved over the last, 10, 20 years, it just started right up beside our ear, and that was the only place. And then there was a text message. And so these were the only ways the phone was used. But everything changed in 2007 when Apple introduced the iPhone, which was combining, great quality video, but most importantly, great quality touch screen. We all remember the BlackBerry, and we all remember, there's a great interview with Steve Ballmer, the CEO of Microsoft at the time, when he was asked, what about the iPhone? And he absolutely rubbished it during an interview. And here we go. Look at where we are now. But the point you make, Nestor, is so relevant because the cell phone is a computer. I mean, the power of a mobile phone now absolutely, is so many million folds more powerful than what the computers were 30 years ago, 20 years ago. It's powered by data though. And our usage is powered by texting, by messaging. And the great thing is that's what Ding does. We power the cell phone with load. Load can be used for talking or for data. It's the most important way to drive the economy as well, because as you say, the cell phone is a mini computer. And if you put that in the hands of someone, anything is possible. Yeah.
And speaking of having mini computers in their hands, and Paula, you can speak to this. There's kind of this trend, and you work for ABS-CBN, so you should know about this. TikTok. There's a TikTok craze, and all the celebrities, the movie stars, the singers, they all do TikTok. Tell us more about that. Can you explain?
Oh yeah. Everyone I know for my social media, they're very they go crazy for TikTok, and it's fun. I think that's why Filipinos are the text champions of the world, and they're number one users of social media, is because we're very fascinated about all of this, and we're very we like fun, and TikTok gives it to us.
Yeah, and the media artists, the celebrities from ABS-CBN, all of them have their own TikTok, and they've got millions, literally, of followers. Yeah, I mean, this is something that it's just caught on, and it's huge, and usually it's just them dancing to music, right?
Exactly. Yes.
But Mark, there's also some very serious uses for mobile phones, and I think you've talked about this in past interviews that I've seen of you. Tell us about how this can lift up, particularly those in the Philippines, for example, which is a developing country. There's a lot of poor, but mobile phones provide access, and access means that you can lift yourself up in many different ways. And I'm wondering if you can just elaborate on some of the points that you've made in other interviews.
Sure. Well, I did just touched on it lightly, but thank you for the opportunity to expand on that, because it really is at the heart of why I started Ding, which is enabling an individual to change their economic circumstances or to change their way of life or just to make their day better is what Ding is all about. And most people have a cell phone. We're not in the cell phone distribution business because, to be honest, cell phones are pretty much available no matter what the quality is, whether it's, really basic 2G phone, or increasingly smartphones are so much more affordable than they were even 5 years ago. So if you accept that everyone has the cell phone, no matter what part of, whether they're in Manila or Mindanao or whether they're in Guam, if you have a cell phone, you can be reached. If you can be reached, you can be reached with value by Ding. That means that Paola, no matter where you are in the world, if you have a cell phone that's out of credit, that's no load, with Ding, we can add to that. That means your day just got better. We're not promising that we can solve all the economic issues and problems that people face. But for one instant, in 3 seconds, if load hits that phone, someone's day just got better. They can access the internet. They can, improve the quality of information that they receive. They become more, used to being able to access information that they decide is relevant for them. And so we see it as a way to empower people and to make them, the decision makers. And once you're making your own decisions, it's just so much more powerful. You're then not just receiving, information, instructions. You're actually in control of your life.
Yeah, and I've seen that. I've actually seen that when people receive load, their eyes light up, right? It's like a big deal to them because they have exactly what you're talking about. They have that access, that power. And can you relate to that, Paola?
Yes, exactly. So whenever I send load to my mom and to my grandma, they're really so happy. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because what does it mean to them? That means that they can talk to their siblings or their grandkids or you back in the UK.
Yes, exactly. So that means they get connected online.
And there's a lot of services out there, but why in particular are you gung ho on Ding?
Oh, it's very easy to use. It's very convenient. You just go on your the mobile app on your phone, then put the number that you want to send load to, and then that's it. The bank processes the payment online, and they will receive the load in seconds. So yeah, I think that's very handy for
Yeah.
for me and for them as well, for both sides.
Beyond Our Borders is brought to you by KFC and the Medical City, where patients are partners.
When making the new Kentucky Fried Chicken sandwich, people asked how I felt about burger places selling fried chicken. I'd say that's none of my business. Just like making fried chicken is none of theirs. Get the new Kentucky Fried Chicken sandwich. It's finger-licking good.
Beyond Our Borders is brought to you by KFC and the Medical City, where patients are partners.
Yeah, and I can attest to that because when I was searching around for load to send to my kids in the Philippines or wherever, that was one of the first ththings that I attracted me to it was the convenience of it, is being able to just touch. And Ding is a brilliant name because Ding makes you think of Ding when you see the load Ding. But yeah, Mark, we have a large Filipino Guamanian population in Guam, of course, and with strong familial ties in the Philippines. And we also have several thousand overseas foreign workers, OFWs as they're known. So this is a product that is perfect for them, yeah?
I mean, so many Filipinos, do such incredible work around the world. And, there's not many parts of the world that you can't go to when you meet with Filipinos, whether it can be in the hospitality industry, And then I really feel for so many of the Filipinos who are working in the shipping industry all around the world, where, conditions are tough, like really tough. So some of the really, hard jobs in the world are often, you'll find great Filipino workers, and they're separated. Life is pretty tough there. They're separated for many months at a time. Wouldn't it be great just for them to be able to, not just see their folks and family, when they get finished with their tour, but to drop some value at that instant directly to the cell phone, no matter where they are in the world. So we think that the real benefit of Ding is that you can say hi just at that moment. And, somebody back home in the Philippines can be having a really bad day, and their day just got better, as Paola said, especially for the seniors and people who can't get out too easily.
Yeah. Do you have any insight into innovations? What's the next step? What's the future hold for the mobile phone industry, for mobile top-up?
Well, we see the cell phone becoming increasingly important. 10 years ago, I mentioned, even 15 years ago, there was no iPhone. So we do see continuing evolution of the cell phone. Exactly what form it's going to take, we're only going to be surprised at, because already everybody has a cell phone. So whatever that instrument is today, it's going to evolve. It's going to still need to be powered up. So whatever applications people decide to use, we see ourselves being at the heart and at the forefront of leading that innovation. For us, for the moment, we're all about load, because we just want to be powering the economy and powering the digital economy, and that's where we see our place at the moment. We will be bringing out more products and services, but for the moment, it's all about load.
Yeah, I'm wondering, and of course, these are all things that are in the brain of some young, brilliant person, right? When 5G comes out, becomes widespread use, the Internet of Things, I think the industry actually relies on, young folks who have ideas, and encourages them to see that through. So I'm wondering, once we are well into this Internet of Things, 5G, how that's going to play into the mobile and mobile top-up industry.
Well, Nestor, I think that this is, such an important point, because, my kids have cell phones, and they operate that cell phone with the fluency like a native speaker of a foreign language. And it's just something that I can only wish for. And the same is true with the cell phone, that increasingly it's got a universal language. You don't need to be able to, to learn the complexity associated with coding. You can just, a kid can pick up a cell phone, even at the, age of 4, 5, 6, and they can start to relate to that in ways through the UX and interface that I can only dream of. So I am so confident that more of the innovations will come from the young people today, from people who just get so proficient at using them, that I think the future is pretty bright.
Yeah, I agree totally. I think the next big thing is lodged in the mind of a 13-year-old that we have even no concept of, but they're going to come up with that idea, going to pursue it, and they're going to be the next Mark Roden, maybe.
Yeah, well, or better, much better, I'm sure.
And Paula, let me give you a chance to get on Mark's good side and tell us why you think folks should avail of Ding.
Oh yes. Yeah, so I recommend Ding for everyone, especially for senders like me, overseas Filipino workers, and even migrants. Yeah. So they can give additional happiness and yung convenience for their families in the Philippines instantly. As for receivers, or to our families and friends back home, it's now possible for them to request a load from their loved ones abroad and be connected with them online.
Yeah. And Mark, we've got maybe a couple of minutes left, so I want to give you an opportunity to just close it out, maybe invite people to use Ding. And I think you have, your office was telling me you have a special promo for users of Ding in Guam.
Yeah, well, and Nestor, I really appreciate this opportunity for us to speak directly to your listeners and viewers, because we, truly believe that Ding will only be successful if we're relevant in the daily lives, and no one speaks to them better than you do, whether it's in Guam or the Philippines. So just in order to celebrate that, we'd like to offer your listeners 50% off their first load when they try Ding. So they can see themselves how fast and easy it is. So we hope that goes down well.
All right. And they can find out more information on your website.
You bet. It's all there.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us. A fascinating conversation. Mark Roden, he is the CEO and founder of Ding, the world's leading mobile top-up service. And Paola de Mesa is an account executive with ABS-CBN, a Philippine media giant. I'm Nestor Licanto. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next month on Beyond Our Borders.
Beyond Our Borders is brought to you by KFC and the Medical City, where patients are partners.